The stars shimmered like frozen tears in the endless black sky as the royal ship of the Aurelian Empire drifted closer to Earth. It was a vessel made of gold and crystal, carrying ambassadors, guards, and one very fragile princess, Princess Lyra of Aurelion, the youngest daughter of the High Queen. Her mission was simple in words but impossible in meaning. She had been sent to Earth to learn human empathy. The Aurelians were a proud and powerful race. They ruled many worlds with logic and strength. To them, emotions were a weakness, something they had left behind long ago. But Lyra was different. She was born smaller than the others, with a glow softer than her kin. Her skin was pale silver, almost transparent, and her eyes shimmered with tiny stars, reflecting everything she felt. The court had always whispered that she was too delicate, too emotional to ever rule. Sending her to Earth was their way of hiding their shame, a polite exile wrapped in royal duty. When the ship landed, crowds gathered to see her. Cameras flashed. Diplomats smiled with their rehearsed politeness. The moment she stepped down from the golden ramp, silence fell. The humans had seen aliens before, but none like her. She looked like something carved from moonlight, beautiful, fragile, and lost. Her long hair floated softly as if moved by invisible waves. Every movement she made seemed hesitant, as if she feared the air itself might break her. The human officials greeted her with cautious smiles. They called her Your Highness, but she could feel their discomfort. To them, she was not a person, just another strange creature from another world. They admired her beauty but kept their distance. They didn't know what to say to someone who seemed half spirit, half light. Lyra's first days on Earth were filled with quiet loneliness. She was given a beautiful room in the human Aurelian embassy, high above the city. It had golden walls and a balcony with a view of the sunset, but it felt like a prison. The humans were busy with meetings and papers. The Aurelians with her were cold and formal, watching her like guards watching a fragile glass statue. At night, she stood by the window, staring at the glowing city below. She could see people laughing, walking, living freely. She wondered how it felt to live without fear of breaking. She placed her hand against the glass and whispered softly to the stars, "Why am I here?" Her voice was so soft the air barely carried it. Sometimes she walked in the embassy garden. The flowers were from both Earth and Aurelion, a symbol of peace. Yet even there she was alone. The humans who passed by smiled politely but avoided her eyes. Her own people followed at a distance, speaking in low voices about proper royal behavior. They didn't notice the way her hands trembled when she tried to touch an earth flower, or how her face brightened for just a moment when a butterfly landed near her. She wanted to understand humans, their warmth, their laughter, their strange love for simple things. But no one truly spoke to her. They only spoke around her. To them, she was an image of diplomacy, not a living soul. One evening during a formal gathering, a group of human journalists whispered among themselves as she entered the hall. "That's her," one said. "The fragile princess." Another chuckled. "Looks like she might faint if you talk too loud." The Aurelians didn't correct them. They almost agreed. Lyra smiled politely as she walked past them, but her heart felt heavy. She sat quietly at the long table, her eyes fixed on the flickering candlelight. It reminded her of home, of soft blue flames that danced under Aurelian moons. But the memory only deepened her ache. Later that night, she went back to the garden, unable to sleep. The stars above Earth looked smaller than those on her home world. She felt like one of them, distant and fading. She tried to be strong, as her mother had told her before she left. "You are a light, Lyra. Shine no matter where you are." But it was hard to shine when no one saw your light. She sat on a stone bench, hugging her knees, her silver hair falling around her face. Her glowing tears rolled down quietly, lighting the grass beneath her. She cried silently, hoping no one would see. She didn't know that in the shadows a pair of human eyes had noticed her, eyes filled not with fear or curiosity, but something else entirely. And though she didn't know it yet, that night would change everything, because for the first time on Earth, someone would see her, not as a fragile alien princess, but as a soul reaching out for warmth, someone human, someone named Ethan. Ethan Cole was not a man of importance. He was not rich, not famous, not a soldier or a scientist. He was simply a maintenance engineer, one of the many who worked behind the shining walls of the human Aurelian embassy. His job was to fix lights, repair filters, clean vents, and make sure the machines that kept everyone comfortable didn't break down. Nobody ever noticed him. Nobody ever asked about his life. And he was fine with that, or so he thought. That was until the night he heard someone crying in the garden. It was late. The embassy halls were quiet except for the soft hum of electricity. Ethan had stayed behind to finish repairing a cooling panel. He was tired and covered in dust, but as he walked through the corridor, a sound stopped him. Soft, broken sobs carried by the night breeze. It was not a sound he expected to hear in a place so grand and cold. He followed it slowly, through the glass doors and into the moonlit garden. The flowers glowed faintly in the dark and the air smelled of rain. There, sitting on a stone bench near the fountain, was the alien princess he had only seen from afar. Princess Lyra looked smaller in person. Her long silver hair fell like a river of light around her shoulders. Her hands were clasped together, trembling. Her eyes, those shining eyes, were wet with tears that glowed faint blue as they touched the ground. Ethan froze. For a moment he didn't know what to do. She was royalty. She was an alien. But she was also crying, and that broke something inside him. Carefully he stepped closer. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. His voice sounded rough in the still night. Lyra turned quickly, startled. For a moment fear crossed her face. She began, then looked down. "I am fine." Her voice was quiet, trembling. Ethan didn't believe her. He had seen enough sadness to recognize it. He could see how her shoulders shook, how she tried to hide her tears. Still, he didn't push her. Instead, he sat on the edge of the fountain, keeping a respectful distance. The silence stretched between them, soft and heavy. The only sound was the trickle of water. Then, after a while, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small piece of chocolate he'd saved from dinner. He held it out to her with a faint smile. "You look like you could use something sweet," he said. Lyra blinked, confused. "What is that?" "It's chocolate," he said. "Humans eat it when we're sad. Helps a little." She hesitated, then slowly took it from his hand. Her fingers brushed his for just a second, cold and delicate. She placed the chocolate on her tongue carefully, almost afraid of it. Her expression changed instantly. Her eyes widened and a tiny, genuine smile appeared on her lips. "It's sweet," she whispered. "That's the point," Ethan said with a gentle chuckle. "Life should have a little sweetness." Lyra looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had ever sat beside her as if she were just another person. Everyone else either bowed too deeply or ignored her completely. But this human, he didn't seem afraid. He didn't see a princess. He saw her. "Why are you here?" she asked after a while. "I work here," Ethan said simply. "Fixing things mostly. Machines, air vents, doors that won't open." She tilted her head slightly. "You fix broken things?" "Yeah," he said with a faint smile. "Guess that's what I'm good at." Lyra's eyes softened. "I think that's a kind thing to do." They talked for a little while longer and about simple things. About the stars. About how humans made art and music. Lyra listened like a child hearing stories for the first time. And when she spoke about her world, her voice grew soft and sad. She told him about crystal cities that sang with the wind, and about how her people thought emotions were a weakness. Ethan listened quietly, his heart heavy for her. When the night grew colder, he stood to leave. "You should rest," he said gently. "It's late." She looked at him, her eyes shimmering in the moonlight. "Will you come again?" He smiled. "If you want me to." Lyra nodded. "Yes, I would like that." As Ethan walked away, he didn't realize it yet, but something had changed. The lonely alien princess who everyone avoided had finally found one person who didn't see her as fragile. And the quiet human engineer who spent his days fixing broken machines had just started to mend something far more delicate. A heart that had almost forgotten how to feel. That night, under the pale glow of the Earth's moon, two souls from different worlds took their first small step toward something beautiful. Something neither of them could yet name. Days turned into weeks, and the quiet meetings between the fragile alien princess and the human engineer became a part of their lives. Every evening after his work was done, Ethan would find Lyra sitting in the embassy garden waiting for him under the silver-leafed tree. She always smiled when she saw him, a small, honest smile that made his heart feel warm and alive. They talked about everything. Ethan told her about Earth, how humans laughed, how they argued, how they made mistakes but kept going. He showed her pictures on his old tablet, oceans, forests, and the bright lights of cities. Lyra listened closely, her silver eyes filled with wonder. In return, she told him about her homeworld, Aurelian, a place of glowing skies and silent towers made of glass. She told him that Aurelian flowers could sing when touched by moonlight, and that her people rarely smiled. Ethan would often make her laugh, something rare for her. He'd tell simple jokes or mimic how humans rushed to work every morning with coffee cups in hand. Lyra's laughter was soft and musical, like the sound of wind chimes. For the first time since she arrived, she wasn't just the fragile princess, she was simply Lyra. But not everyone liked what they saw. The guards began to whisper. The other Aurelians started watching them more closely. Even the human diplomats who were supposed to welcome her started making comments. They didn't see friendship. They saw scandal. One afternoon, as Ethan walked through the main hall, he overheard two human officers talking near the elevator. "Did you see her with that engineer again?" one said with a smirk. "The princess of a whole empire sitting with a janitor." "Yeah," the other laughed. "Maybe she's studying human empathy a bit too closely." Ethan felt his chest tighten, but he said nothing. He was used to being invisible, but now, every glance, every whisper felt sharp. That evening, when he met Lyra again, he didn't mention it. But she already knew. She could feel it. "They are talking about us," she said quietly, looking down at her hands. Ethan nodded slowly. "People always talk." "Doesn't mean they understand," Lyra sighed. "My guards say it is wrong, that I should not speak with a human of your status." He tried to smile, though his heart hurt. "Do you believe that?" She looked up at him, her eyes bright with emotion. "No," she said firmly. "You are the only one who sees me, the only one who listens when I speak. They look at me and see a title, a duty. But when you look at me," she paused, her voice trembling, "you see me." Ethan wanted to tell her that she wasn't wrong, that he did see her, not as an alien or a princess, but as someone beautiful and kind. But he couldn't say the words. He didn't know if he was allowed to. Still, their friendship continued even under the cold eyes of others. They met secretly now, away from the lights of the embassy where no one could see them. They would sit near the lake behind the garden, where the stars reflected like silver dust on the water. One night, Lyra brought a small crystal orb from her home world. She placed it in Ethan's hands carefully. Inside it glowed a tiny spark of light that changed colors as he touched it. "It is a memory stone," she explained softly. "It keeps feelings inside. When you touch it, it shows what your heart remembers most." Ethan looked into the light. Inside the orb, shapes moved. A small child laughing in the rain, an old dog sleeping beside him, his mother smiling as she fixed his jacket. He blinked, amazed. "It's beautiful," Lyra smiled gently. "It shows love." He looked up at her. "Then yours must be shining brighter than anyone's." She blushed faintly, a soft shimmer of silver on her cheeks. But their peaceful moments couldn't last. Rumors had begun spreading beyond the embassy. A human worker and the alien princess, talking alone, laughing together. To some it was innocent, to others it was disgraceful. One morning, as Lyra entered the conference hall with her guards, she overheard two Aurelian diplomats whispering. "She spends too much time with that human." One said coldly, "The queen will not like this." "She was always weak," said the other. "Too easily swayed by emotion. It is embarrassing for our kind." Lyra kept walking, her heart heavy. She wanted to shout, to tell them that kindness was not weakness and that empathy was not shameful. But she stayed silent. She had learned that in both worlds people feared what they didn't understand. That night when Ethan found her again, she wasn't smiling. Her eyes were red and her voice was quiet. "They think I'm weak," she whispered. Ethan looked at her, his jaw tight. "They're wrong," he said softly. "They just don't know what strength really looks like." Lyra met his gaze, and for a long moment they said nothing. But in the silence, something deeper than friendship formed. Something that neither of them dared to name yet. And far above them, unseen by both, the stars seemed to burn a little brighter, as if the universe itself was watching their fragile, forbidden connection begin to grow. The bond between Princess Lyra and Ethan grew deeper with every passing day, but so did the whispers. What began as quiet gossip turned into open judgment. The guards watched them closely now, and the embassy corridors seemed colder than before. Even the flowers in the garden, once bright and welcoming, looked dull under the heavy air of rumor and suspicion. Lyra could feel the change. When she entered a room, people stopped talking. When she smiled, no one smiled back. The humans stared with curiosity. The Aurelians looked at her with disappointment. She tried to ignore it, but each day it became harder. Ethan noticed too. Every time he passed other workers, he heard the same cruel jokes and mocking voices. The princess must be bored, one would say. She found a toy. Another would laugh. A human and an Aurelian? That's a story for the tabloids. He tried to keep his head down, but the anger burned quietly inside him. Not for himself, but for her. Lyra didn't deserve this cruelty. She was gentle, kind, and full of light. Yet the world around her only saw what was different, not what was beautiful. One night, Lyra came to the garden looking worried. Her silver glow was dimmer than usual, her eyes clouded with sadness. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I think they know." He frowned. "Who?" "The council," she said softly. "The Aurelian High Council has received reports that I have been spending too much time with you." Ethan felt a cold weight in his chest. "Reports? We haven't done anything wrong." Lyra gave a small, broken laugh. "To them, kindness is wrong. Emotion is weakness. They don't understand that you make me feel alive." He wanted to hold her hand but stopped himself. "What will they do?" "They want me to return home," she said. "They believe Earth has corrupted me, that I have lost the discipline of a royal." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Then tell them the truth. Tell them nothing happened." Lyra looked away, her voice barely a whisper. "But something did happen, Ethan. You changed me. I can't unlearn what I've felt. I can't pretend your kindness means nothing." His heart ached hearing those words. He wanted to tell her that she changed him too, that before her his life had been gray and silent. But before he could speak, a bright flash broke the night. A camera. Someone had been hiding behind the trees. Another flash followed, then the sound of hurried footsteps. Ethan and Lyra froze. In seconds they understood. Someone had taken pictures, evidence that would twist their friendship into a scandal. Within hours, the images spread through every communication channel. The headlines were cruel. Alien princess seen secretly meeting human worker. Royal disgrace or forbidden romance. Both humans and Aurelians had opinions. The humans were curious, even amused. The Aurelians were furious. They called her a disgrace to her people. The next morning, the embassy was in chaos. The Aurelian ambassador, his golden armor shining like fire, demanded to see Lyra. Ethan wasn't allowed near her. Guards surrounded her room. She tried to speak in her defense, but no one listened. "He is my friend," she said again and again. "He showed me kindness." Is that a crime? But to the Aurelians it was. They didn't understand friendship with emotion. To them, compassion was a weakness that dulled the mind and polluted the heart. By noon, the order came from the Aurelian homeworld. Princess Lyra was to be removed from Earth immediately. Ethan was fired from his job without warning. His clearance was revoked, his tools taken away, his name erased from the employee records. He tried to fight it, but no one cared. To them, he was just a worker who had gotten too close to someone far above him. When Lyra heard what happened, she begged the council to stop. She fell to her knees before the golden hologram of the High Queen, her own mother. "Please, mother," she pleaded, tears running down her glowing cheeks. "He did nothing wrong. He only cared for me when no one else did." But her mother's voice was cold as the void. "You have brought shame upon our name, Lyra. You will return home at once." When the day came for her to leave, Ethan stood by the security gates, surrounded by soldiers. Lyra walked toward the ship, her face pale, her eyes full of silent pain. When she saw him, she broke from the guards and ran to him. "Ethan," she cried, her voice filled with desperation. "I'm sorry." He reached for her, but a guard pushed him back. "Lyra!" he shouted, struggling. "Don't go." Their hands almost touched, before the guards pulled her away. She looked at him one last time, her lips trembling, and whispered something he could barely hear through the noise. "Thank you.
For seeing me."
Then the doors closed, and the ship rose into the sky, its golden light fading into the clouds. Ethan stood there long after the ship had disappeared, the sound of her voice echoing in his mind. The world around him moved on, but he couldn't. Because somewhere among the stars, the fragile princess who had been rejected by everyone had taken his heart with her, and he didn't know if he would ever see her again. The world felt emptier after she left. The embassy that once glowed with silver lights now seemed cold and lifeless. The gardens that once whispered with laughter now stood silent. Ethan still came by the gate sometimes, even though he no longer worked there. He would stand behind the fence staring at the empty balcony where she once watched the sunsets. He missed her voice, the soft tone that carried peace. He missed her smile that made everything around her seem alive. For days he couldn't sleep. His small apartment felt darker, heavier. Every night he would go to the rooftop, look up at the stars and whisper, "Are you okay, Lyra?" But the stars gave no answer. Then one evening, while he sat in a small cafe near the spaceport, a familiar face appeared on the screen above the counter. It was a news broadcast, Aurelian news. The translator's voice came through flat and cold. "Princess Lyra of Aurelian has fallen gravely ill," the reporter announced. The royal medics describe her condition as an energy collapse, her body no longer harmonizing with her spirit. The cause is believed to be emotional instability brought on by her recent stay on Earth. Ethan's heart stopped. He froze where he sat, staring at the screen as if his world had ended again. The image showed Lyra lying in a silver medical chamber, her once bright glow now dim. Her eyes were closed, her face pale as moonlight. The cafe went silent. Some people whispered, "Poor alien girl." Others didn't care, but Ethan couldn't move. His chest tightened, and before he knew it, tears had filled his eyes. "She's dying," he whispered to himself, "and I can't even reach her." He spent the next few days trying to send messages to the Aurelian communication channels. He sent letters, pleas, anything he could. Every message came back the same. Connection denied. Access restricted no matter what he tried. The walls between their worlds had grown taller than ever. He started dreaming about her. Dreams of her calling his name through the stars, her voice fading before he could reach her. Each morning he woke with the same heavy ache in his heart. His friends told him to forget her. "She's gone, Ethan," they said. You can't love someone from another world, but he couldn't stop. It wasn't just love. It was something deeper, a promise his heart refused to break. He couldn't forget the girl who had looked at him and said, "You see me." On Aurelion, Princess Lyra lay in a silent chamber, surrounded by golden light. Her mother, the High Queen, stood beside her bed with emotionless eyes. "You are too weak, my daughter," she said coldly. "You let human emotion destroy your balance." Lyra tried to speak, her voice faint as a breath. "Mother, I am not weak, I just learned what love feels like." The Queen's expression hardened. "Love is a poison to our kind," but Lyra only smiled weakly. "Then let me be poisoned." Her body trembled as her energy faded. The healers worked tirelessly, but they couldn't understand what was happening. They tried crystals, medicines, and energy transfusions, but nothing helped. Her light grew dimmer each day, and then one night, as the royal healers monitored her, a strange thing happened. Her heart rate began to rise slightly. Her glow brightened for a moment, just for a few seconds. She whispered something softly in her sleep. "Ethan." The healers looked at each other in confusion. The machines flickered, responding to the sound of the name. They didn't understand, but her body reacted every time she said it. Far away on Earth at that same moment, Ethan sat by the window during a storm, unable to rest. He held the small crystal orb she had given him, the memory stone. It still glowed faintly. Sometimes when he touched it, he swore he could feel warmth, as if she was reaching out from across the stars. "I won't stop," he whispered. "You're not alone, Lyra." He began researching ways to send a signal directly to Aurelian. He didn't know how, and he wasn't a scientist, but he knew machines and he had hope. Hope was the one thing no one could take from him. Days passed, then weeks. Lyra's condition worsened. Her people began preparing for the worst. The Queen ordered that her daughter be placed in deep stasis, frozen in crystal sleep, so her energy wouldn't vanish completely. When Ethan heard this news from a leaked broadcast, his hands shook. "They're going to freeze her alive," he muttered. No, I can't let that happen." He looked at the stars again that night, rain falling around him. His heart felt both heavy and burning. "Hold on, Lyra," he whispered into the wind. "Just hold on a little longer. I'll find a way." The universe was vast and he was only a human, small and powerless. But love, he realized, was not bound by size, distance, or even species. It was something infinite, something that could cross galaxies. And though he didn't know how yet, Ethan made a silent promise to himself. He would bring her back, no matter what it took. The nights grew longer for Ethan. He barely ate or slept. His room turned into a small workshop filled with wires, screens, and old transmitters he bought from junkyards. Every piece of metal became part of his hope. He worked until his fingers ached, building a device that could send a direct signal beyond Earth's system, a message of the heart. He didn't know if it would work. He didn't even know if it was possible. But love didn't care about science. It only cared about trying. One stormy evening, lightning flashed across the sky as Ethan stood on his rooftop. The machine was ready, a strange tower of lights and metal plates humming with low energy. He placed Lyra's crystal orb at the center. "Please," he whispered to the storm, "let this reach her." He pressed the switch. The tower glowed with a soft white light. Then a beam of blue energy shot into the dark clouds, spreading like a whisper across the night sky. Ethan closed his eyes and poured everything he felt into that moment. His pain, his love, his memories. "Lyra," he said softly, "come back to me." Far away on Aurelian, inside the royal stasis chamber, the frozen crystal holding the princess began to flicker. The healers gasped as faint blue light wrapped around her body. Her heartbeat, silent for days, began to rise. The queen rushed in, shouting for control, but it was too late. The energy had found her. Lyra's eyes opened slowly. Her glow was faint, but her heart beat strong. She could hear his voice in her mind, warm, human, and full of love. "Ethan," she whispered weakly, tears forming in her eyes, "you kept your promise." Against her mother's orders, Lyra escaped the palace that night. She stole a small shuttle with the help of a loyal guard who had once seen her kindness and couldn't watch her die again. The journey to Earth was dangerous, her body was weak, her energy unstable. But she didn't care. All she wanted was to see him one last time. It took her 2 Earth days. When her ship finally entered the atmosphere, the emergency system screamed warnings. The shuttle burned through the clouds and crashed in a quiet forest near the city. Ethan was at his workshop when the alarms went off on his radar, an unknown object descending fast. His heart raced. He jumped on his bike and rode through the rain, following the coordinates. When he reached the forest, he saw smoke, light, and the broken ship glowing faintly in the darkness. He ran through the trees, shouting, "Lyra! Lyra!" And then he saw her. She was lying on the grass, her silver dress torn, her body glowing weakly. Her breathing was shallow, but she smiled when she saw him. "Ethan." He dropped to his knees beside her, rain soaking them both. "You're here," he whispered, voice shaking. "You really came back." "I told you," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Love can cross stars." He held her hand, warm but fragile. "You shouldn't have come," he said, tears falling. "You're too weak." "I wanted to see you," she interrupted gently. "Even if it's only for one more day." "No," Ethan said firmly. "You'll live. You'll stay." He carried her to his small home, wrapped her in blankets, and tried to warm her. The glow around her flickered like a dying candle. He didn't know how to heal her, but he refused to give up. Days passed. He cared for her like she was made of glass, feeding her, holding her hand when nightmares came. Slowly, her color began to return. Her eyes grew brighter each morning. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Lyra stood at the window looking at the golden light. "Your world is so full of life," she said softly. "It hurts to breathe it in, but it's beautiful." Ethan walked up beside her. "You make it beautiful," he replied quietly. She turned to him, smiling weakly. "You always say things like that. Do you really believe it?" He took her hands gently. "I don't just believe it, Lyra, I feel it." Her eyes shimmered with tears. For the first time in weeks, she laughed. A soft, fragile laugh that sounded like music. "You're strange, Ethan. No human I've met loves like you do." "Maybe that's what makes us human," he said, smiling. She looked at him for a long moment, her heart full. "And maybe that's what saves me." Then she leaned forward, resting her forehead against his. For a moment, their worlds disappeared. No galaxies, no borders, just 2 souls holding on to the same heartbeat. Outside, the wind carried their silence like a secret. That night, her glow brightened again, not with pain this time, but with warmth. Something inside her was healing, something beyond the power of any Aurelian doctor. Love had done what no medicine could. And though she was still fragile, still half between life and death, she finally felt safe. For the first time in a long, lonely life, the fragile alien princess was home. Days turned into weeks and Lyra slowly began to heal. Her body was still weak, but her spirit glowed brighter with each sunrise. The doctors on Aurelian would never have believed it possible. The fragile alien princess who had been fading was alive again. Every morning, Ethan would bring her tea, though she barely drank it. He would sit beside her, telling her stories about Earth, about children chasing kites, about the smell of rain on old roads, about how humans found beauty even in broken things. Lyra listened with quiet eyes. "Humans," she said one day, "you feel so much, even when it hurts. That's what makes your kind so powerful." Ethan smiled softly. "We're not powerful. We just don't give up, especially when it comes to the people we love." Her heart fluttered at his words. She reached for his hand. Then maybe that's the kind of power our world needs. But not everything was peaceful. The Aurelian Council had discovered her disappearance. The Queen herself sent ships to Earth, furious that her daughter had defied the royal order. The news spread fast and across both planets. Some humans were afraid, some curious, and some angry that aliens could come and take one of their own away. When the Aurelian ships arrived, they hovered above the city like silent stars. The air grew thick with tension. Government agents surrounded Ethan's neighborhood, warning everyone to stay inside. Lyra stood by the window, her glow trembling. "They've come for me," she whispered. "They'll take me away again." Ethan shook his head firmly. "No, you're not leaving this time." "You don't understand," she said, tears filling her eyes. "If they find you helping me, they'll hurt you." He smiled faintly, stepping closer. "You're worth the risk." Before she could argue, the sound of a landing ship thundered outside. A blinding beam of light swept across the house. The door shook under the force of a royal knock. "Princess Lyra of Aurelian," a cold voice announced. "By order of the High Queen, you are to return immediately. The human will not be harmed if you comply." Lyra turned to Ethan, trembling. "They'll never stop, Ethan. I can't let them hurt you." He held her shoulders, looking into her eyes. "Then let's show them what love looks like. Not fear, love." Something in his voice gave her strength. When they stepped outside, the night sky was filled with Aurelian guards in shining armor. The Queen herself stood among them, tall and emotionless. Her silver crown reflected the lightning above. "Mother," Lyra called weakly, her voice echoing through the rain. "Please listen." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You broke the sacred law. You let a human poison your soul." Lyra shook her head. "No, he saved me. When all your medicine failed, when your healers gave up, it was his heart that brought me back. You call love poison, but it gave me life." The Queen's expression did not change. "Emotions make us weak. Then weakness is what makes us alive," Lyra said, her voice rising with new strength. "Because without love we are nothing but hollow light." The crowd of Aurelians murmured. Some of them looked down, shame in their eyes. Ethan stood silently beside her, his hand still holding hers. "Mother," Lyra continued, tears running down her cheeks, "you taught me to protect our people. But maybe it's time to learn something from his people, from humanity. They may be fragile, they may fall, but they rise again and again because their hearts never stop fighting." The Queen stared at her for a long moment. The storm rumbled. Then slowly she turned her gaze toward Ethan. "You would risk your life," she said, her voice heavy, "for one who is not of your kind?" Ethan nodded without hesitation. "I already did, and I'd do it again." For the first time, the Queen's cold mask cracked. Her eyes softened, just slightly. Perhaps she saw something she hadn't in centuries. Courage born from love, not power. Finally, she spoke. "If this bond is what sustains you, then perhaps I have been blind. The universe is wide, and we are not its center." Then she turned to her guards. "Stand down." The ships powered down, their lights dimming. The tension dissolved into the rain. Lyra gasped, tears of relief falling freely. Ethan smiled softly. "See? Even stars can change their light." Lyra laughed weakly, leaning against him. "You always find a way to say the right thing." The Queen approached slowly. "You may remain on Earth for as long as your heart requires, my daughter. Perhaps there is something to learn here after all. And just like that, the ships vanished into the sky, leaving peace behind. Lyra and Ethan stood together under the quiet rain, hand in hand. She looked at him, her eyes full of warmth. "Do you think love can really change worlds?" He smiled, pulling her closer. It already did. That night, as the storm faded, a new dawn broke, the first shared sunrise between Earth and Aurelian. The fragile alien princess, once rejected by her own world, had found her strength not in power, but in a human heart that refused to let go. And in that love, both worlds learned something they had forgotten long ago, that the strongest force in the universe is not light or war or science, it is love.